So to begin, we have this beautiful grand staff so that we can see how everything works together to create the notation system that we use. So let's take a look. What do we have here? We've got lines and spaces, and we've got these two symbols, which you are probably pretty familiar with as they are very synonymous with music in general. So up here, we've got the treble clef. So the treble clef is this really pretty sort of swirly design, and it's also known as the G clef, and there's a really good reason for that, which we'll talk about in a minute. Then down here we've got the bass clef, and it is the bass clef because it's what's played lower on the piano. So the bass clef usually connects to the left hand, where the treble clef is usually for the right hand. Now this bass clef's also got like an alternate name, also known as the F clef, which we will talk about later as well. So to begin, we're going to start with the treble clef. So for now, I want you to ignore this middle line, and we're just going to talk about what we see from here up. So we've got line 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 5 lines and 4 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4. So each of those lines and spaces has a note name attached to it. And remember when we talked earlier about this treble clef having a nickname G clef? Well, that's because this line that runs through the center of the treble clef's kind of curl here is G. So if you want a really easy note to identify, it's this guy right here, G. So G is line 2. So when we move from a line to a space, we're literally just stepping up one note name. So if this is G, this is important, our musical alphabet runs from A to G and then repeats itself. So after G, we go to A. After A, if we move to the line note, we end up on B. After B, we end up on C. Okay, so notice how we're moving line, space, line, space. This is gonna really help you with your sight reading. After C, we have D on the line. After D, we have E in the space. And after E in the space, we have F. And this can keep going, but we're going to just stick within the general staff for now. So second line up is G. It's the line that goes through the center of the treble clef's curl, also known as the G clef for that reason. And then we just go up our musical alphabet from there using every line and every space consecutively. So that's really important to know. Now I'm going to take all these away for a second, and we're going to look at sort of the bottom part of the treble clef. So this line here, super important. This is, so if we leave G here, this is gonna be like a landmark note. This is another landmark note, and you need to know this note, like memorize it. It could be the most important note because this is what's gonna put everything to do with sight reading into perspective for you and how everything connects. So this here is called middle C. So middle C is located in the center of your piano. It's the C nearest the middle, and this is what it looks like when it's notated in the treble clef. So middle C is super important. After C, we have D. Okay, so notice how we've drawn another line here. Normally you're not going to see all these lines in music, but we've got them here just to make it easy. But if anytime you see a middle C, there'll be a line drawn through it. Anytime you see a D above middle C, it exists just below the first line of the treble clef. After D, we have E. After E, we go to the space for F. And then look at, we're right back on our landmark note of G. So that's how this all works in terms of what the note names are. Now, that's all fine and dandy, but how do you memorize that so you can play notes really quickly? I'm going to go back to landmark notes for a moment. So I want you to notice that we've got C as a landmark note. We can really easily identify that. So what if my next note was here? Without having to think too hard, how would you know? So I like to think in terms of like space and skipping and stepping. So if I were to step up 1 from C, I'd have D. But I'm moving from a line to a line. And anytime you move from one line to the next possible line, you're skipping a note. So my brain can automatically just go, if that's C, playing C on the piano, I'm going to skip the next note. It's going to put me to E. So you want to get really quick at sort of skipping through your alphabet in your head and thinking forward and backward. That's really going to help you with your sight reading. So if I were to skip this note and put another note here, I've got 3 line notes, and I kind of call this a pattern jump up high because the notes are skipping over. We've got a C, skip the note to get to E, skip F to get to G. That's a really quick and easy way to start sight reading without having to really concentrate on, what is every single note. If you can memorize this note, then you can spatially acknowledge that the next note here is skipping a note and then skipping a note. So you can play that really easily on the piano. It translates very well. So a great way to get used to sight reading is by kind of skip counting and using your landmarks as sort of your grounding, your sort of base point, your starting point. So if I saw this, I know that's C because it's really important to memorize, and then I saw this, the more you practice, the more you can kind of count up. You go, okay, well, that's C, so this is D, this is E, this is F. So you'll get faster at that as you go, and I find that's a really helpful way by basing my sight reading skills on the distance between the notes more so than actually going, this is C, D, E, F. It really, really helps to put it together. So my landmark notes are C and G. I find that those are the easiest to locate. If you have, learned music in a band class or in school somewhere along the way, took piano lessons as a kid, you're probably, used to the word face in the spaces. So this is F, A, C, and E. There might be an acronym for these ones. Every good boy deserves fudge. You can absolutely rely on those, but honestly, I find landmarks to be way more efficient. So I'd be interested to hear what your favorite approach is. So let's take a look at the bass clef so we can see how this all connects. So a lot of times, beginners will go, okay, well, this is F, so that must mean that this is F. Well, it's not, and I'll show you why. So this is A, and I'm going to show you how this all adds up. So we've got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and look at that, guys. I'm going to borrow this. This is middle C. Brings us back to middle C. So everything is based on this middle C. The middle C is it's the deciding factor, really. It's how everything connects. It's why it's so important. So when you see just a bass clef with a note drawn here, so you just kind of see this would indicate that you're going to play middle C, the C in the middle of your piano, with your left hand. Now, if you're just seeing the treble clef with the middle C below it, you're going to be playing middle C with your right hand. So same note. It just depends on how it's shown. So in the bass clef, using the bass clef rules, this can be middle C. Below C, so think about your alphabet backwards. This is B. Below B, we've got A, and then everything moves down from there, G, and then this F is another special landmark note because the bass clef's nickname, look how this big dot goes around line 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the F note. So F clef, big dot, goes between the two little dots, brings us to F. So those are some ways of looking at notes using sort of landmarks that are going to help to make it all make sense. So that's how the notation works. That's how note names work and how they all connect using the grand staff. So yes, it is a lot of information to take in. You can use patterns in the bass clef just like you did in the treble clef. So if I place a note here, I'm memorizing that this is A. You can go back to your acronyms too. All cows eat grass, or good boys deserve fudge. Always, you can make up your own. I'm going to tell you right now that this is C. So if you know this is C, and I place a note here, you're going to skip count. C, skip D, E. If I place a note here, we're going from a space to a line, so to the very next possible spot. This is E, we're on F. If I want to skip again, skipping the space, so if you jump up from F, you land on A. So using intervals, memorizing a few spots that kind of feel kind of organic and intuitive to you in terms of, everybody kind of, I think, gravitates to certain places on the staff. Middle C for me, I find that this is really easy to remember as A. I find this is really easy to remember as F. I find this is really easy to memorize as G. And then from there, it's just a matter of counting up and down your alphabet, using these lines and spaces as your guideposts, as your landmarks to move you up and down from where you're playing. So the more you practice this, the easier it gets. Look for patterns in your music. It will really, really help. Comment below. Let me know how you